Welcome to the Ground Zero podcast with Jump and Wit. Season 1 is done. We are finished. We had an incredible Super Bowl with two absolute heavyweights of Ground Zero. Great playoffs, a wonderful way to start off the cycle. I thought, a lot of guys got going. We got to see, we got the award winners set. We know exactly what happened, and now we get to look forward to the future too. So I'm excited to get propelled into the second season, but we have a great season to look over with.
Yeah, it was the one guy we had on our podcast, Jump, is the man that won the Super Bowl, Q. So very excited for
Podcast
Q.
bump.
Yeah, we had our one visitor to the Ground Zero podcast was the man that won the whole Super Bowl. So the rest of GZ, you're on there you go. If you come and join the podcast, there's a chance you guys will win the Super Bowl. So but yeah, it was a great season. Q had, he had a memorable season. I mean, being in his division and playing him twice a year, and Chandler came close. Chandler played him very well, beat him once, and tell you what, he went through the playoffs pretty unscathed. I mean, he started with the wild card game. I'll pull it up now, kind of go through it.
Yeah,
But,
I think the fact he was tested, at the beginning, he and a lot of us didn't know how much he'd be tested. I think the fact that he was tested a lot during the season actually probably helped him come playoffs.
Yes, I mean, he started off with the Packers, and Bling won 27-17 in the wild card, which was a very close game. I think all of his playoff games were very close. Then he went and played the Eagles. Nick and the Eagles won 30 or 41-37. So that game was I remember I was watching that game. That was a very good game on both sides. Nick's one of the lead of Ground Zero. So for him to beat Nick was very impressive, and that was a really close game. That was probably next to Super Bowl was probably the closest two games he had in the playoffs.
And then he had his nice start to the playoffs for certain.
Yeah, and then him and Andy had a had a game, where the championship games, and very surprised he shut down Andy. Andy was putting up 30-40 points on everybody as the Seahawks, and Q really shut him down. I was really surprised on that front, and beat Andy pretty well, and then went on to the Super Bowl, which we knew against Mills was going to be it was a 4-3 matchup. It was with the one seeds. You had a great divisional round with Seahawks and Falcons and Steelers and Chargers. I mean, no other than Andy, there was no other one seeds or two seeds. So the low seeds came to play, and it became a 3 versus 4 matchup in the Super Bowl. So.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool to see, right? I mean, obviously not for me, who was a 2 seed and got rocked right away, or Malibu, but no, dude, and that's, I don't think anyone was shocked, right? Like, Tyler, even with his record, beating me right away, Oscar winning the way, no one's shocked. Once you get to the playoffs, it really is a bunch of guys that can win. So no shame in losing to anyone in this league. That is for certain. And that path that he had, tough one. And yeah, congratulations to Q. And I mean, what a season for Mills too. That was a nice run he had to get to finish things off in the playoffs as well. So yeah, and some upsets. I think everyone thought Waltz would have as good a shot as anyone to go to the Super Bowl, and I don't think we expected to see Oscar take him down the way he did. That was pretty shocking, but awesome. But Oscar's a great player. So, lots of good players in the playoffs this year. It really was a lot of fun because every matchup did seem pretty elite. And then the Super Bowl was perfect.
No, it was. I mean, it was the best game, and we had the league stream, Ground Zero league stream on Monday night with the divisional matchups. Great. I mean,
it was awesome.
The league stream is one of the best things. I look forward to that every time that we have multiple games during the regular season. Then we throw in playoffs. It's always a fun time, and a lot of the owners and GZ comes to support their their fellow teammates and different owners. So it's fun to watch that. I really appreciate the time that Ground Zero puts into that, and we just trying to grow that and grow this league. And yeah, it was a memorable season. I mean, all of us. I mean, we had guys like Nate and Jaden and guys that are elite that had rough goes the first season, and a lot of elite players because they're not used to man. They're having a challenge and they're trying to figure out what man's about and how to
New
play and
game. Yep.
the game and everything. So it was a big challenge. But yeah, it was a great season, man. I enjoyed watching you jump. You had a great year, and a lot of guys like you and Waltz, you wouldn't think would have been bounced early in the playoffs. But when it comes to playoffs, man, it's elite of the elite. So you
Yeah.
gotta come with your best game. So
Every single game. Yeah, you really did. I think this playoffs truly showed. I mean, because even they were saying when it came to the predictions, no one was getting a superstar. No one was predicting the way these outcomes would go, and it was a lot of fun to see some upsets in there. Because certainly as Madden cycles go on, it does start to feel sometimes once you get beat by the same people over and over that some things become inevitable. So when new guys win and upsets, especially in the playoffs, that helps propel some hope around the league, I think. And then but yeah, so it was a great playoffs, and then so now we get to move a little bit forward, and we had like at the end of the season, all of us that weren't in the Super Bowl, um, get to do see what dev changes happened after the award winners. We talked about the award winners last pod a little bit, and that didn't change a ton as at towards the end of the season, right? Like there was only I think 5 or 6 different winners that changed. The big ones, Walker was still the MVP, right? So he led that most the season. I want to say almost from week 8. So that wasn't unexpected. And then a few other, my Deshaun Elliott was up there pretty much all season. Troy Anderson with the Jets. But we did have a couple change. The AFC Offensive Player of the Year was Jonathan Taylor for a lot of the season, and Jamar Chase overtook him at the end. Henry became the best running back in the AFC over Jonathan Taylor. So yeah, Wild's got a couple there with Willis and Henry getting award winners in the AFC there. And then Chargers with Corey Linsley as the offensive player of the year. That stayed the same. The Bills had Von Miller there for a good while. He had a great season, just a boatload of sacks. Matthew Judon was in the lead for most of the while with the Pats there, but TJ Watt overtook him. But if I look correctly, I think Matthew Judon went up to X Factor for Jelly, who had a big bunch of boosts from his rookie Tyquan Thornton, who got offensive rookie of the year. He went up to X Factor as well as Judon, so we got a couple nice boosts. And then Byron Jones of the Dolphins overtook Kyle Hamilton at the end there too.
yeah, and on the NFC side, not a lot of changes. You had Russell Wilson with his impeccable run to the Super Bowl overtake Aaron Rodgers for best quarterback. Other than that, everything stayed the same. Kenneth Walker, N'Kobe Dean, Kenneth Walker, best wide receiver. Jameson Williams, Shaq Mason, Jonathan Allen, N'Kobe Dean as best linebacker. Deshaun Elliott as the best DB and Jake Elliott as the best kicker. So really not a lot of changes other than that one at quarterback for offense, all the awards for the NFC. So more in the changes in the AFC jump than the AFC. But I mean, you look at it, it's like, yeah, these are top name players, all good teams. All these guys are, the Pats, even though records don't really signify that. It's Judon. Every time I watch one of Jelly's games, it seemed like he was sacking the quarterback every other snap. So yeah, it's just the elite of the elite. I mean, that's what's about. It doesn't matter what your record is. You can if your player's having a good year, they win awards. So
I was gonna say, and Nate, I think had a bunch of guys go up as well as Jelly. So a couple of guys who, weren't right there at the top at the end, but we'll have some nice changes going into next season. Some things to help that out a little bit. But I guess now that the season's done, great season. Obviously, congratulations to our guy Q and Rick. I mean, dude, that is kind of a perfect end. I thought Rick with the Chargers was going to destroy people from the beginning. I saw preseason. I knew he would do a lot of damage. I think I called that one pretty early on. Um, and then Q, I did not expect him to do that with the Falcons. I will say that year one. I although there was some surprises, I didn't think even with Andy's abilities he'd be able to do that with the Seahawks, and I didn't think I'd be able to, my defense would be able to do that with the Lions to get that many wins. So throughout the season, there was a couple of teams that I didn't think would be able to do it that did it. I also thought Chandy would be able to win a little bit more than he did, but he kind of showed that he has the team and the ability late in the year. But, it's hard to say there's a lot of surprises when the end is Mills and Q, right?
Yeah, the surprise was Q. I think. I mean, with that team, we know that the team's in a rebuild mode. But with that trade of Russell Wilson, I think we all know to be elite, you got to have elite quarterbacks. I think we made that trade for Russell Wilson. He was buying in that he can develop the young players and being a good player that he is, and any player in this league. You develop those young players, you get a good quarterback. I mean, sky's the limit. So I think
I
that
do.
that Russell Wilson trade is probably the biggest thing, Jump, for
That was huge, yeah, and I do think that showed, right? Like, Chuck is, good, or at least believes he's good, and, he, couldn't really do a ton with Ritter,
yeah.
so I do think there is a fall off when you have to use someone, so I think that Russell Wilson trade probably is the difference between Q making the playoffs versus Q winning the Super Bowl.
100%. I think if you're Ritter on that, if that trade doesn't go through, I don't. It's maybe Q doesn't go to the Super Bowl, and maybe you're looking at Chuck, making a run the AFC. So a lot can change trades, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. We're in the off season now, and already got people, looking at trades right now. So I mean, this is a time that people like me and you, Jump, the rest of the league are looking at making moves and make our team better. So, I mean, that's,
Absolutely.
looking at the weaknesses to get better, looking at young players, looking at the draft. So it's a fun part, probably the funnest part for me and a lot of the owners is this part of the year. I love doing this. This is building my team up is fun.
For sure. And the playoffs in GSE is fun because we do have a lot of guys that are, fun to watch, engaging, and pretty elite. But it is understandable, right? There's a dead period for half the league. They get to participate as much as you can, but you're not playing. So it does yeah, once I lose, it's hard not to shut off for a little bit, right? Like it's you almost grind out a lot of the season, so it's fun, but you do grind out at certain points, and then once you're done, it's like, okay, I'm going to take a second. So now, though, the second that Super Bowl is done, there's 32 owners just focused on making their team better. And anytime you're doing that, there's a lot of excitement, and it's fun, right? Like the draft is maybe the best part for a lot of guys. Free agency, I'm excited to see like we finally get to do free agency. Hopefully, if Madden can get their stuff right, but we finally get to see the new system and how it's going to work in the league. So I think that'll make maybe that a little bit more exciting. When you add that guy that is that changing piece, maybe it makes it's a little bit more dialed in. It's not everybody going for the exact same guy. It should be a little different. So that should be cool. And yeah, and who can't wait for the draft if we get to draft or not. But that's probably a nice time to do a PSA. If you don't know how to set a draft board, it is probably vital this year. So figure it out.
Yeah, 100%. I feel that we're gonna have a vote on it, a lot of input on it, but just the integrity of the league and making this league as long as we can possibly have it. I think we should this first year probably just sim it. And like I said, having a draft board, knowing how to do a draft board, being able to scout players, the scouting is a whole different thing. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see because you're going to have a draft board and you won't know. We'll sim the draft, and at the end of the draft, you pull up all your draft, and you'll be like, oh, okay, I got that guy. I got one of the guys I wanted, one of the two that I had on my draft board. So I mean, it's because when you're live, you see all the picks go, then you can make your changes. When you're sim it, you have no idea. So
Yeah, the GM in me has a hard time saying that's the best way to do it. But I just, dude, if we have to restart a bunch of times, I'm gonna lose my mind because we've had to do that way too much lately. I want to build a team for real. So hopefully we can. I'm happy to set a draft board, do what we have to. If there's a chance that it's going to just crash everything out and lose our league, I don't know if you can take that risk.
Yeah, yeah, and I wanna, I don't wanna repeat a last cycle. I wanna try to get 3 to 4 seasons in, 5 seasons. I mean, something we've done back in, when GZ started. I mean, that's what's fun is when you take a guy and build him up from drafting him at, the first draft, and then building him up into season 5 and being a keeper and going into, the next cycle or that last draft grabbing a keeper. I mean, it's fun. I mean, that's just what's fun about it is just building a team and building your players. I mean, taking 69 overalls and after 2 seasons being 80 plus and superstar. I mean, that's fun to do that. That's the best part for me, Jump. And I know for you too, is to
I love
build your
finding those
players and build
guys.
your team,
Absolutely, man. You get to build it. You get to see it develop, right? It's a fun piece of the whole experiences. Putting the guys in the right spot and doing your thing. Yeah, I had 460 something starting on my defense at one point this year, but eventually at least one of them got a dev up and is at least a real player now. And I'm going to stick by Rodrigo no matter if he is a 68 overall, still a normal dev. But there's those guys that you like and you get to build the team around. But and the draft's a big part. So that's gonna be a real bummer if we have to just do it that way, but it'll be just something else to deal with and set your stuff. It'll be exciting.
Well,
And
now I mean, you got a feel of your division foes, so you know what you need to stop. You know how to build your defense. Like me, you look at our division. I mean, you got Q with Pitts. That's the guy's 92 speed. He's a demon. So now it's like, okay, I got to find somebody that can handle him. That I can try to take him
right,
away at least. But then I got to worry about all the other weapons. But yeah, you start looking, and you start seeing what your division, Jump the Blings and Tylers and all that, what you have to do and to stop, their offense and what you want to do to your offense to get you over the hump. So yeah, it's
yeah,
fun. It's fun
y-
to kind of now know, okay, I need to focus on more cornerbacks. Hey, I got to get stronger on my inside, defensive line. I need to stop the run. So it's funnest part of drafting and salary cap and making sure managing your salary cap and not going crazy. And you don't want to be out there season 2 or 3 dealing with salary cap issues. So there's a lot
right.
to think about.
But that's the
So
fun of it. That's what I can't wait.
100%,
That's
100%.
why free agency is going to be fun. I'm going to have to manage all this stuff. Yeah, and speaking of, we got the draft coming up. That's going to shape a lot of futures. I didn't look close. I want to say there was a just filthy looking tight end
Yes,
that
yes, I had
someone's
him
gonna
up. He's Georgia, out of Georgia, A's in almost everything. So that's I
he's
think
gonna go top
yeah, he'll
something.
go he'll go Tyler some right outside linebackers, 2 top right outside linebackers on the board. There's a quarterback. There's
There's one
yeah,
quarterback who's legit at
yeah,
least, right? I
yeah.
think.
There's about 7 or 8 top 5 players that are rating pretty high, but you gotta look at their combine here in a few weeks and look how their combine came out and how they grade out. So be fun to kind of watch those players and see what they grade out. But yeah, dev changes are another big deal too at the end of the season. So you look at teams like Philly, Detroit, New England, all had great
Yeah.
dev upgrades. I mean,
Dude,
Philly
mine
is
was
is
huge.
amazing.
I
Yeah,
had
and you
6.
you had you had 6. Philly had, I think he had another 6.
Oh, Philly's net. Jordan Davis went to X
Yeah,
Factor.
that's insane.
N'Kobe Dean went from normal dev originally to he's now superstar, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Nick's going to be a force in the East. Tyler, I think the East is going to be brutal
that's gonna
next
be
year.
brutal. That's
I
gonna be
think
brutal.
next pod we're probably going to do a lot of predictions and stuff. But yeah, I know the Eagles got a lot of bumps. I did. I
And
start.
Jelly, Jelly, even though Jelly
Kelly
didn't have
got
a
a
great
bunch.
record, he devved up, which he told me. He said, "I'm deving up. I'm focused on deving up players my first year," and
Absolutely
that's a good thing to do. I mean, you want to dev your players up. I mean, you want to win games that keep some morale up, but biggest thing is you want your young players to dev up. So you have 3 teams there that have made some major moves, and Philly was already tough as it was. I mean,
right. And I
imagine
want to
Nick with
say
the you know.
Nate. I think had a bunch.
Oh yeah,
At
Nate
least
had a
I
bunch
saw
too.
Jalen
Yeah.
Phillips went to X Factor. Like so, there's a few of them that were either borderline playoff teams, lost early in the playoffs.
Hmm.
That hopefully my QB went to X Factor. Watch out. So
Yeah.
I hopefully there's some changes enough on my side and some of the other guys to change some futures. And the draft does that too. But like I said, those end of year dev changes make a pretty big
Yeah, I
difference.
mean, you're hoping in the draft you get that X factor superstar player. You know, if you can, one or two of those guys to shape your future, but you can't bank on it. You have to, you know, I mean, it's hard to get those. But yeah, you had Troy Anderson, Kobe Dean, Isaiah Simmons, and
Yeah.
Patrick Queen. I'll go to superstars.
Yeah, a
So
lot of linebackers I saw, young linebackers went up a lot. There was a lot of good ones that went to. There's yeah, superstar, the ones we mentioned, or X Factor, and then there was yeah, what the Falcons,
mhm.
I can't say his name, but he went to X
BK,
Factor,
yeah,
and
yeah,
he's nasty. I
yeah.
think Roquan either did or
Roquan
he
went
went
to
to
X Factor.
superstar maybe.
Yeah,
But a lot of linebackers went up. That also means a lot of guys went down. Like I know Bobby Wagner, I think Fred Warner went down. So
Miles
there's a
Jack. Yeah,
big
there's
change.
some
You
that
know,
went down. I know. My linebacker went down from superstar to star. So
Demario Davis,
Demar Davis went down,
but he even
but
retired, didn't he?
I think he
Like,
retired. Yeah, yeah.
I guess we
We
don't have to
went
worry
to
about the dev
have to
regression,
worry about him now. So yeah, so I need to. Yeah, so now you know you look at retirements. That's another thing. You don't even take that into
right?
and so now you're like, okay, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, my weak point or actually my strong point, which was linebackers, now becomes my weak point again.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's yeah, it's a lot to take in. You got to look at that. You got to look at free agents
I didn't look. Is Brady still? Did Brady
I didn't
retire?
even look. I didn't look.
I didn't
I
either.
think he
We should probably be on Brady watch, right?
yeah, yeah, I want to watch. Yeah, I need to go in there and check Brady out after this podcast and see.
Sorry, Chandler, that might affect your future there a little bit
That's
too.
hard. You go from him. I mean, I've played with
Oh,
Brady. He
he
was
has a crazy backup or something, doesn't he? I
yeah,
don't remember. Like, I don't
yeah,
remember how that worked, but anyway,
yeah,
yeah, there was. But that changes things, right? Like, I don't know. I
100%.
DK Metcalf went down for Andy, but when you run like that, and
Yeah, he had
Walker's now
yeah,
a superstar,
Kenneth
it's probably a
Walker.
matter of time before he's X Factor.
Yeah,
So
Kenneth Walker's a beast. I mean, he just utilized him, I mean, unbelievably and made a run, all the way to the divisional round with, with Kenneth Walker and running him. And dude, every game I watch, a guy's running through people. It take five guys to bring him down. So when you go what's working and you got DK there, but if you're running the ball and they can't stop the run, then you
who
just keep
cares?
running the ball. So
Right?
I
You
mean,
stay still a deep threat and all that other stuff. But it'll change some stuff. Like I started with two superstars between my offense and defense to start the season. I now have four on defense. Jameson's a superstar, and my QB's X Factor. That's awesome.
yeah, that's huge for
That's a
you.
different team, right?
Well, it's a whole different team. You'll come out next season and put the pieces of your draft, free agency, and you have big. I mean, you won 14 games, jump. So it's you got high expectations. So
Gotta come back stronger.
yeah,
But
come
yeah,
back
dude,
strong.
that's why
Yeah,
the off season's fun is things change, right? Like speaking of changes, do we need to hit on some of the posted big trades like the
yeah.
second the Super
We've
Bowl
already got
started?
some big trains coming out of New Orleans. New Orleans
Yeah.
looking at trading Philip Hewitt, their X factor, young quarterback to Arizona for Simmons, Isaiah Simmons, and some first round picks. So we got to look at the league and see if they approve that. And then the Panthers trading Brian Burns to the Titans, which is huge
Yeah.
for Noah and the Titans. I mean, I think I don't know if he had a good pass rush. Harold Landry's still there. I don't know who's their main pass
Well,
rush guy.
speaking of teams that got boosts, I think Walt's got some nice boosts.
Yeah,
Karloftis went to X Factor from a
yeah.
rookie. There was a couple rookies that went from I think Stardev maybe to begin the year and are X Factors
X
now.
factors now. Jeez,
Like
insane.
Karloftis, I know. Taekwon Thornton for Jelly was one. Yeah, so there
Yep.
was some big, big moves. But
Hmm.
yeah, Waltz. I mean, is there such thing as too much pass rush in this Madden or
No, no.
football in real life?
If you
I
could
mean,
get four X factors on that defensive line, I
do
would
it.
take four X factors on the defensive line. Period. Then you all you got to do is kind of worry about shutting down that run and try to play coverage because you know that you guys are going to get to that quarterback in a hurry.
Is
So
Brian Burns star factor? or star, I mean.
Think he's a star. Yeah, I think he's only star. But I mean, with the right owner and going over the Titans and all
Oh, he's
that,
gonna
with
kill.
yeah, I think he'll. I mean, we'll be talking about him the next offseason going to X Factor.
Yeah, and
Um,
then yeah, then the Super Bowl or the AFC champions, they're adding a defensive tackle or trying that looks,
yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
everybody the best
Everybody's
teams
making
loaded
moves,
up.
man.
You
It's
can't.
quick. It's
Yep.
furious. I mean, it's quick and furious on people going, okay, I need to shore up this, I need to shore up that. So people are starting to, make moves. So
Uh
that's a good sign, man. I mean, that's involvement. I mean, this league is very involved. All the owners are very involved and they want to make their team better and they want to be where Q is and on top of that mountain getting that trophy. So
that's the goal. But yeah, everybody, I just like you said, you build. Right now, everything changes, and with changes, excitement and hope and everything else. Um, I hope to be able to beat Bling more this year and compete with yeah, the Qs and Mills of the world because there was some very, very good performances. Andy, I mean, there's a lot of guys to chase in this league, that's for sure.
oh yes, yes. There's no shortage of elite players in this league, and there's players that at the end, Lycan was playing a lot better, as the Panthers. So excited. That's the funnest part is seeing guys improve season after season. Guys that are lower end. I'm looking for that Tiger, the Bears to improve
Yeah,
off of his first season. It's always fun to watch people get better. As they get better, they learn more, they be more competitive, and can never. I mean, in this league, you can never count anybody out. Period.
yeah. The
So,
hard part is right. Like it's when someone gets better, that means someone else is going down, right? And we'll get into that hopefully in the next podcast when we do more what we expect to see this season after the draft, after free agency, once we see really how teams shape out. Because, I mean, obviously, users, I mean, the Andys and the Qs of the world, I mean, user matters a ton, but teams do too, right? So, what happens in the offseason will make a difference, especially it's an arms race. It's always, you're
you know,
just always competing with your division. Like you said, guys are getting better. I expect, and we'll get into this next time, I expect to see some pretty big win loss switches. Like,
yeah.
I mean, even with my team getting better, I would bet the farm that I don't hit 12 wins next season. Like, it's just unlikely that I have that many. So, someone's going to add at least a few there. Like, there's a lot that'll switch, I think. And yeah, you mentioned Tony, that Tiger, right? Like,
Yeah.
he's one that I would expect to add a few more. But we'll get into that next time. But that's the fun part. Like, this is where we're all kind of like in our zone, figuring out our draft guy. Who
Well,
where
yeah,
I've
I'm looking
stared at
at
my
the top.
roster for
Yeah,
way
I'm
too
looking
long.
at the top five draft. Right now, top five right now for the draft for Commanders at one, Bears at two, Texans at three, Panthers at four, and Eagles at five. I mean, Eagles have the Saints pick, so I mean, Nick's gonna just the rich get richer. So I mean, he's
That's
got top
tough.
five picks, so he's gonna be able to get somebody to fill another hole. So I mean, there's not gonna be a lot of holes that he has. So yeah, I mean, Commanders. I mean, what holes they have? Maybe a quarterback, Bears, Texans, and Panthers, and Eagles.
Well,
That's your top five, huh?
Commanders, I think have a keeper QB, so that'd be a little shocking.
So and I think maybe defensive side of the ball. I mean, or I don't know. Maybe he goes with that tight end out of
Dude, there's some
Georgia.
play. There look like there's some playmakers. There's a lot of corners. I didn't look, but there was what like six corners slated for round
Yeah,
one or two, or that one or two. You know what I
yeah, and
mean?
he's
So
Commanders are really I think weak at corners. So that could be his pick. Bears. I mean, he's got a quarterback, running back. I mean, offensively, maybe a receiver. Offensive. I don't know.
I think
Offensive
he'll
line.
be hard pressed to pass up on that tight end because he could use some um, real weapons.
Yes.
But
Yes.
defense is always a big deal, right? And then, but yeah, that he'll be hard to pass up. I didn't. I guess I should have looked closer. I know there are some nasty defenders up there for sure, but I
Yes.
think there was a couple top offensive linemen, at least two or three, that looked, like, hey, if you need an offense lineman worth taking up there.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be yeah, I'm curious to see what our boy
Jaden.
Phoenix does. Yep, Jaden. I mean,
Yeah,
he's
interested to see what
when you
Jaden
talk
does
about
at
record
3.
changes,
Yeah,
I mean,
he's got I mean, he's got holes, but he definitely he's one of the
it's the
teams that I'm
Texans.
look
Of course, he's got holes.
yeah. He's one of the teams I'm seeing a huge improvement. He went 2-15. That Jaden is not a 2-15 owner. He will definitely improve off of that. He'll probably be the biggest jump in the whole league of wins last season to wins this season. So he's one
I
guy I
would
see
yes.
jumping up. Estrada, I see jumping up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jelly Scott with the Raiders. So I mean, there's some guys there that had low single digits that will be high, probably low double digits next year.
If
Um,
I was to if I was to guess, I think we'll see less win totals over 12 and less and more and less win totals under 4. There'll still be a
yes,
couple. There'll always be a
yes,
couple. Like it's hard, right? But
yeah,
I think year 1 it's easier for there to be big swings, right? Like I think by year 2 everyone figures out the game and gets a little bit closer usually. That's so I would expect that gap to narrow. I don't think there's a huge gap anyway, but I would expect the win loss total gap to shrink down next year.
yeah. I think so. You'll see this, like yourself, jump. You talked about going, winning 14 games again. That's gonna be a challenge year. You'll have guys coming up, you'll have guys coming down. So it'll even itself out. They said there'll be more guys over 4 wins or 5 wins. There'll be less of the 14 and 15 win team. So I'm excited to kind of see who makes the biggest jump. Made some
Me
notes
too.
of that. Estrada, I think, is another. That guy's a solid player. He had 6 wins. So there's a lot of low
When
single
Estrada's
digit.
not winning early in a cycle, I get the sense he's very happy to show he can beat the elite guys and not win very much. So
Yes,
I think
yes.
he'll get a nice draft pick and work out just fine.
Yes, I'm excited. Like I said, I love to watch the underdogs. I've always been an underdog follower, and so the Tiger, I want to see him do well. Scott, I played. He's I know how good he plays. So when he's on his game, Scott with the Raiders will be a team that you gotta watch out for. So we're gonna do that next podcast predictions. Kind
Awesome.
of talk about the draft, recap draft, off season, big moves in free agency. Who drafted some good players in the draft. So I'm excited to do that podcast after we get through the off season, and then we'll
We
start
could do
getting
a
the
winners
predictions.
losers. I mean, you can't do a winners losers at the end of the season. We all know there's
Yeah.
one winner. It was Q.
Oh,
The
oh
rest
yeah,
is
Q, great. I mean, great season, man. I tell you what, I didn't. I mean, you don't really know who's going to win. You know who the top players are, and all of them are in the playoffs usually. But it's a dogfight, man. You get in that in the playoffs, and it's best against best. You got to bring your best game every week, and that Super Bowl was a great Super Bowl one. I mean, classic between
that'll
Ravens
go.
and
That was a
Chiefs.
perfect way to start the cycle.
Yes, yes. Perfect way to get rolling and get the energy. Energy is always up with this league and appreciate everybody supporting it. But yeah, me and Jump will jump back on and do that. But appreciate everybody and the league stream and what everybody does with the graphics. I mean, everybody's chipping in and helping out. And man, I'm excited to keep this league rolling and get more and more content. So
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I'll be excited to see what we do with the draft. I'll be excited to see who I get regardless. I want to see what I can do with this team moving forward. I want to see what you can do with the Saints. We'll see what happens with your nasty game-changing trade there with all of the picks and Isaiah Simmons. So good luck there, buddy. Excited for everyone. Best of luck in the draft. Hopefully we get through, fingers crossed, the off season and everything works.
yes.
Because the most important thing is I just want to move forward with you guys into season 2. I know it's going to be a blast.
Yeah, we'll have a blast again. This podcast has been great, Jump. Thanks for joining me on this. You've been great, man. I like I tell everybody, I'm enjoying this podcast. More than I'm playing. I really like going through the league and talking about what's going on in the league and all the stuff we got going on. So thanks again to everybody and GZ. keep up, the good work, and look forward to seeing what you guys do with your team. So please, enjoy your week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Jump.
Th- Thank you, Wit. Congrats, Q. Congrats on a
Yes,
great season.
congrats, Q, Super Bowl champion. Can't take it away from you, my friend. Thanks, Jump.
Do it.